The opinions of the guests and host are their own and do not represent the opinions of Ironclad, the Border Patrol, or the Department of Homeland Security.
I don't care what your opinion is on illegal immigration. Let's put that aside. Let's put illegal immigration aside. But when you cause a crisis this big, that overwhelms the Border Patrol, so many of the agents are pulled off to patrol duties. What results? That's when the fentanyl came in and killed 148,000 Americans. That's when the no inspector terrorists can get away. That's when the sex trafficking of women and children happened. That's where the 2 million gotaways, with a lot of them would be gang members and criminals and just bad people. There's a reason they didn't pay less, turn themselves in and get a free airline ticket to city of their choice. So regardless what your opinion is on illegal immigration, when you cause a crisis big, it causes all these other bad things to happen. So this illegal immigration crisis has created the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. Border Patrol's arrested over 370 off the terrorist watch list just on the southern border.
We cut through the partisan talking points. We're not interested in perpetuating fear. We're interested in seeking truth, hearing what's really going on America's borderland. Welcome to Borderland, an Ironclad original. My guest today is former Border Patrol agent Tom Homan. Tom most recently was appointed the acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement by President Trump in 2017, a post he held until his retirement in June 2018. Tom has some of the most extensive experience, boots on ground in the Border Patrol. He has a wealth of knowledge in border security. He has very strong views on the crisis that's happening currently today. And here is our conversation. Sir, nice to meet you. If you don't mind, would you be able to give a quick bio of your background and your expertise?
Well, I retired as the director of ICE under President Trump, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I spent 34 years on border security, national security. I started in Border Patrol in 1984. And after 5-6 years later, I became a special agent, and I climbed the ranks over the next 3 decades to become I was the first director of ICE that actually came up through the ranks. That was my proudest achievement. So I've been doing this 34 years. Started wearing the green uniform, United States Border Patrol in 1984. Class 167. We're all retired now, but we still all care.
Yes, sir. We just celebrated our 100th anniversary of the Border Patrol just the other day, May 28th. I was class 880, and my EOD date was May 28th, and so that's kind of an honor of mine. And so I'm very proud of that.
One thing about the Border Patrol people don't really understand is that if you meet someone in the Border Patrol, they remember their EOD date, they remember the class number. I was October 10th, 1984. So, and look, the 100th anniversary I couldn't make because I was in New York City, but I did get an order, just received my 100th anniversary pistol. So I got that. I got every anniversary pistol Border Patrol's ever had.
I actually just ordered 2 of the Henry rifles. They have and I'll get you a link to that later if you need it. But yeah, the Henry rifles I just ordered for myself. I want them in my office.
Send me that link. I'll add that to my collection.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And so you moved up the ranks fast. You ended your career in federal law enforcement with ICE?
I ended my career as a director in ICE. And
then after that, you moved into, you were appointed as Executive Associate Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement 2011, correct?
Right. Then I became the director in January of 2017. And 2019, I retired, and I started my own business. And my business has to do with border security. I also work for Fox News, keeping American people advised of what's going on in the border.
Absolutely.
And it's not good.
Well, you are currently one of the well-known public figures that's a subject matter expert of the border. You know, and this podcast really focuses on all the different experts in their field, and they tell us from immigration lawyers to policymakers to political officials to journalists to investigative journalists down in Mexico with the cartel. And, you know, having someone like you to meet here is an honor because I know who you are. I've seen a lot of the work you've done, and I want to give you an opportunity to tell the people of the United States, you know, the current conditions on the border, you know, and really there's a lot of different angles to this because, you know, the immigration conversation, the asylum conversation, the cartel conversation, there's many angles we can take this. But currently what you're seeing on America's border. I would love to hear your opinions on that.
Well, look, to be honest, I wake up every morning pissed off because we handed this administration, we worked very hard on the Trump administration. We handed this administration the most secure border in my lifetime. Again, I started border in 1984. I've worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. And every president I worked for, every president, including Clinton, Obama, took steps to secure the border because they understood you can't have not strong national security if you don't have border security. They all got it. No one did more than President Trump. President Trump is successful, unprecedented. Illegal immigration was at a 45-year low. Illegal immigration was down 83 to 90%, as high as 90%, depending on what time frame you looked at. So his success was unprecedented. So we handed this administration, the Biden administration, the most secure border in my lifetime. And he unsecured it on purpose. Think about that. He's the first commander-in-chief in the history of this nation who came into office and unsecured a border. And he wrote 94 executive orders within the first 2 weeks, pretty much abolishing everything we did. And we went for the most secure border to historic, never seen before, numbers crossing the border. So, yeah, I wake up every day pissed off after all the hard work we did. And we secured the border at the highest level ever, that somebody would come in and tear it all down. Now we're facing with historic illegal immigration, historic drug flow, historic sex trafficking of women and children, historic number of people on terrorist watch lists crossing the border, historic number of cartels making record amounts of money, historic number of Americans dying. I mean, it's just record number of Americans dying. A record number. We got 1,800 migrants that died crossing the border, illegal aliens. 1,800, another historic record. So everything about this administration is terrible, and I'm pissed off every morning just thinking what they did on purpose.
When you say on purpose, how can you verify that what they did was on purpose, and what are some of the things they did that actually?
Let's remember, Joe Biden ran on open borders, and I wrote an op-ed 6 months before the election. I wrote an op-ed for FoxNews.com. I said, if Joe Biden becomes president, we lose the border. And why did I say that? Based on what he was saying during the campaign. He's going to end ICE detention. He's going to put a moratorium on deportations. He's going to come up with an amnesty plan. He thinks illegal aliens should get free medical care. When you offer those type of giveaways, the whole world's going to come to the greatest nation on earth. We knew that. The only ones that celebrated that election was the criminal cartels in Mexico because they knew they were back in business. And when he got in office, you got to give him a credit. I'll give Biden one piece of credit. He kept his promise because he wrote 94, or he signed, he probably didn't write them. He signed 94 executive orders in the first 2 weeks, abolishing everything we did. Why in the hell would you abolish the Remain in Mexico program, which is a game changer with the Trump administration, move numbers down the lowest low? He abolished the third safe country agreements, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Why would you end any agreement with another country to limit illegal immigration and human trafficking? There was no reason for that. So he wrote all these executive orders. It went back to catch and release. And look, he's been in power 3.5 years. He hasn't done a single thing to slow the flow. The only thing that this administration done said more resources to the border to process quicker and release quicker, because all they care about is the optics. If there's no overcrowding, if we can prevent overcrowding, there's nothing to see here. So I say they did it on purpose because he abolished the most successful programs in the history of this nation on the border. This isn't mismanagement. This isn't incompetence. This is by design. He ran on open borders and he kept his promise.
What is what has been in place in our immigration system for housing of illegal immigrants? Like, has there ever been some kind of, not necessarily detention center, but like anything that we've ever had in place that can take an influx of immigration?
Look, when I was at ICE, we had 34,000 detention beds. When we had the family surge in 2014, 2015, we built family residential centers, kind of a campus setting. So ICE has always been in charge of detaining people, children. They go to Health and Human Services. But what you see now is this administration funding NGOs to get hotel rooms for illegal aliens and give them 3 meals a day and get free medical care. That's never happened. Again, when you tell somebody you can enter the country illegally, you won't be detained, you'll be released. We're going to fly to the city of your choice. We're going to put you in a free hotel room. We're going to give you 3 meals a day. We're going to give you free medical care. And you know what? In 90 days, you can get a work authorization. Who the hell wouldn't come? So I've never seen anything like this before. We always said detention space, both ICE detention or HHS holding children. It was never like what you see today.
Yeah, you've also argued that Biden has opened the door to what you call the third border. What is the third border, and how does the Biden administration left it open?
Look, the problem is, when you make these type of promises, everybody's going to come. Now, what he's done is, they took such a beating over the illegal alien numbers coming across the border that they created this program where they say legal pathways. Let me be clear: nothing legal about it. I've been doing this a long time. They're abusing the parole authority. The parole authority says that you can be pro-United States on a case-by-case basis, looking at specifics of your case, and it's going to result in a significant public benefit to the United States government. They're bringing thousands in a day under parole. There's no case-by-case analysis. They're not looking at specifics in any case. I mean, the president himself says on the CHNV that when bringing the people from Cuba, Venezuela and Haiti, and he brings 30,000 a month into the airports. He said, I'm going to parole 30,000 people a month in. How do you make that statement without doing a case-by-case analysis? So they created these buckets, right? They created the CBP1 app, they call it Legal Pathway. They created the CHNV for the four designated countries. So they're bringing thousands in that way, call them legal entries. And they're not legal entries. These people have no documentation of the country legally. They're the same people that were passed between the ports of entry, but they created these two other buckets. And why do they do that? So they can claim that illegal alien numbers, illegal alien counters are down because they took a big portion of them and put them in a POE. So he created a whole new system, what he calls legal pathways. I'm telling you, they're going to lose it in court because I know what the law says. I'm not an attorney, but I can read. I know what the law says. So that this will end hopefully in the near future because it's abuse of the parole authority. When I was ICE director for a year and a half, almost 2 years, I paroled three. Two were witnesses in a cartel trial. One was a organ transplant for his U.S. citizen daughter. Three. They're doing thousands a day. So it's an abuse, and that's the new border. That's the new way to enter this country. Go through one of the legal pathways and come into the country, even though you're legal, even though you will be ordered removed. Let's remember, even if it's CHNV, whether it's CBP1 app or illegal entries, the stats are clear on this. Immigration court data says this: those who claim asylum at our border won't get relief. 9 out of 10 will never get relief in U.S. courts. It's actually 87.6% do not qualify for asylum, or they don't show up in court. So even though they want to call them asylum seekers, they have right to claim asylum. Know this: 9 out of 10 will end with an order of removal. And it's going to be ICE to find them. But now Secretary Mayorkas has said ICE can't arrest someone who's just being illegally in the United States. He said you got to be convicted of a significant crime to be targeted. So even the 9 out of 10 that lose their case, no one's looking for them.
Yeah. Man, it's crazy to think. Right now, currently, obviously, the president just passed a bill or a policy that will stop, asylum seekers from entering outside the port of entry, which I believe was already the case. But now they're putting a cap on a certain amount per day. What are your thoughts on that?
It's smoke and mirrors. Look, why didn't he take action for the last 3.5 years? This is all about the election. Election's 6 months out. Immigration is a big issue that pulled his poll numbers down. So he's trying to do something. But let's be clear. They said 2,500 a day. That was over a week ago. I get the daily report. There's been over 5,000 apprehensions every day since he made that proclamation. That hasn't changed a thing. Then we got memos leaked from CBP, from ICE, and from Border Patrol, basically saying unless you're from one of these targeted countries, 5 countries, you're going to be NTA'd no harm. And we got ICE instructions about not even interviewing somebody about the fear, just let them in. So bottom line is, and that's why he wrote the proclamation. Try to find the specific language on what that actually means. Try to find instructions anywhere is what that means. They didn't. They made this general statement. They're leaving up the Border Patrol to make the determination. And I saw it was a leaked memorandum. I read it 3 days ago. Pretty much it's back to business as usual. There still hasn't been, the board hasn't been shut down. It's been a week, and it's close to 5,000 every week. sometimes over 5,000. Where's the border being shut down? That you can see. So we'll see what happens. But I think this is nothing but an election ploy. And I'm not okay with saying 2,500 people a day will allow you to commit a crime. As you know, it's entering the country illegally is a crime. We're going to let 2,500 people commit a crime, come to this country and be released. We're going to bring thousands through the port of entry. We're going to bring a couple more thousand through the airports. I'm not okay with that because you look at what they've done, even with the 2,500 a day, you're looking at over 2 million illegal aliens entering this country every year. I'm not okay with that. So instead of 2,500, why not one?
Right.
Why not just secure the border? They could turn the Remain in Mexico program back on tomorrow, which the Supreme Court says is a legal program. They can put the third safe country agreements in place. They can end catch and release. They can start doing ERs more frequently. They could fix this within 48 hours. They don't want to. They don't want to fix it.
So for the audience, when you're saying NTA, that's notice to appears, those are the I guess the letters that they're getting, and when it's the catch and release idea, it's they're getting processed and then they're getting released to a sponsor or an address that they have, and then they have posted a later date to return for the immigration judge to make a determination on their case, and then the ERs is an expedited removal. That's the common removal process that the Border Patrol does for during my time in. Someone who comes in across, we identify they come in illegally, expedite, remove them back into their own country, and so. Just for the audience's sake, just to explain that to them. My thoughts on this new policy, I imagine you're going to get a massive influx at the borders, hoping to be that 2.5, the 2,500, and all that leading into, the kind of the traffic that happens on the borders. They tend to kind of, they haven't a thought or an opinion of what's going to happen if Trump takes over in office. Then he's going to shut the borders down, so might as well get everyone in now. And so I think it's going to have the counter effect of what the administration currently thinks is it's going to have a bigger influx of immigration while everyone's trying to get in while they can.
I think with this policy, this proclamation he put out, it's just going to cause more gotaways. We already know there's just about 2 million known gotaways because we know there is drone traffic, central traffic, video traffic, footprint, something. The Border Patrol found signs someone entered and they weren't apprehended. 2 million in 3.5 years. And I think this proclamation once it reaches 2,500, people will be gotaway. And more gotaways can happen because one of the things they've done recently, they took almost all the aerostats out of the sky. The big, for your viewers, the blimps, they give Border Patrol eyes on the ground. Why did they ground them? They say it's a budget issue. I said bull crap. They took the eyes out of the sky so they don't have to count the gotaways. I think that's part of the problem. I think, and give Border Patrol, take their eyes away. And I just think this administration is not trustworthy. I think they lie to American people every day. Border Patrol have the Aerostats up. That's a great tool for them, but they're taking tools away. Why do they take tools away if they're really serious about securing the border? It's ridiculous. So I think the 2,500 a day, even if they enforce it, just going to create more gotaways. So people are still come. Because why not? Even if they get caught, if they get caught, they're not going to be released.
This episode of Borderland is also brought to you by Horizon, an American saga. This epic tale from Academy Award-winning director Kevin Costner celebrates the courage, resiliency, and pioneer spirit that built America. The film features stories of courageous men and women who sacrificed everything for their chance at the American dream. This film had everything that me and my wife love to watch. It had romance, it had violence, it had some epic history. I absolutely loved it, and I think you will too. This 4th of July, make Horizon part of your celebration. Don't miss Horizon, an American saga, with Chapter 1 in theaters June 28th and Chapter 2 in theaters August 16th. Join the Frontier Pass at fandango.com for exclusive content and tickets. Right. Currently, illegal immigrants who are coming across the border are walking directly up to the Border Patrol agents and they're giving up. Essentially, they're walking up to them because they know the process is going to get them released back into the United States with an NTA, a notice to appear. Gotaways is pretty much like the old traffic that I used to work would be, they don't want to be apprehended, so they're going to try and evade any kind of law enforcement detection. And so they'll be working really hard, usually at night, to try and, to not be seen and get to their point of destination. So Yeah, I mean, I can see that happening absolutely for sure. I don't see why or what the benefit is to having such a high number of illegal immigration in America for the administration. It's one of those things where you think like, why would anyone do this to their own country? And I don't understand that in my former background besides Border Patrol was Special Operations Military. And I say that because we used to go overseas to kill or capture, known terrorists who have ties to wanting to hurt Americans, right? And so coming to the Border Patrol was my way of doing the same thing, hopefully on our own soil. But then to think about any kind of government that allows what's happening right now, for some reason, doesn't have their thoughts on Homeland Security or more focused on the hearts and minds of immigration. If I put it gently, right? I'm putting that gently in a sense of like, maybe they're just really thinking the humanitarian mission of it. But personally, I think of the Homeland Security side of it, and I'm pretty terrified of that. And so what is the benefit of this for the administration?
The reason they're doing it, they perceive a future political benefit. There's no other reason to do it. Because I've been up on Hill many times. I asked every Democrat congressman I run into, what's the downside on a secure border? Give me a downside on a secure border. What's the downside unless women and children being sex trafficked? What's the downside unless aliens dying? What's the downside unless drugs getting in? What's the downside unless terrorists getting in? What's the downside criminal cartels making billions of dollars less? No one can tell you. There's no downside in a secure border. So they obviously see a future political benefit. So they sold this nation's security out for future power. And why do I say that? I said, a lot of them think they're future Democratic voters. These millions of people come in, maybe future Democratic voters. Maybe. But we don't have to get there, because when President Biden signed 90 executive orders, 94 executive orders, he also overturned the Trump census rule. Trump says illegal aliens can be counted in the census. Now they can be counted in the census under Joe Biden. So the next census, if this stays in place, you're going to count millions of illegal aliens in sanctuary cities across the country. And what's that do? That's going to give more seats in the House for the Dems. And when they reproportionate seats in the House, it's based on the census. Congressmen know this. Why do you think they're fighting to have illegal aliens counted in the census? Because it's going to give them more seats in the House. So look, this is about political power. They see a future political benefit. They want to control the Congress forever. And this is one way to get there. And some people say, well, Homan, that's a great replacement theory. That's a white supremacist theory. Garbage. The facts are the facts. There's no other reason to allow millions of people into this country and release them to sanctuary cities. Then all of a sudden, sanctuary cities explode across the country. We have more sanctuary cities right now than we ever had. There's a reason behind all this. So the reason is more seats in the House for the Dems through the census, and that is a guarantee. The voting, if they have an amnesty to make them citizens, yeah, they can vote, but some may vote anyways. But the first reward for the Democrats, more seats in the House, based on the census.
And I don't know the answer to this question. Maybe you do, but what states allow illegal immigrants to vote?
Now, I don't know any states that knowingly, publicly allow them to vote, but there's some cities, municipalities. Washington, D.C.'s got a thing. They vote local elections. New York City, I think they just got defeated on one, but it's popping up in all these sanctuary cities. That is the game. That is your end game. If you then get them to vote in local elections, because the federal government won't take that on, right? And who in the state government, if it's like New York or California, where you got two really left-leaning Democrat governors, who's going to really take it on and say, no, we're not going to allow you to do that? So, they'll start with local elections, the state elections, then they'll get to feds. The moves, there's people on the Hill right now talking about letting illegal aliens vote. The progressive wing up there. It's just that the one right to all American citizens, the right to vote. Now they're trying to tear that down and give that to people who aren't even supposed to be here. So just watch the next couple of years, the attempts to let illegal aliens vote.
What are some of the ways that the White House could leverage other countries in Central America to do more to stem the flow or to stop the flow of migrants trying to enter into our country? Like, is there relationships that we need to build, or I'm not sure, how do we stop the flow of it?
Well, we had relationships on the Trump administration. Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador all signed agreements with President Trump, and on a third state country agreement, which means if you're from Guatemala and you're really escaping fear and persecution from your homeland, which asylum is, if you're really escaping fear and persecution from your homeland and you get to Mexico, have you not escaped that fear and persecution? No longer there. So, of course, we got these 3 countries in Mexico to agree that they will accept asylum applications from people in the triangle countries. That was a big deal. A lot of people were claiming asylum in Mexico. So, and plus, you got to have a strong president. I know President Trump. These countries didn't want to sign that agreement right off the bat. I mean, I remember we arrested just short of 500 gang members in New York City during Operation Matador when I was a director, and a lot of them were MS-13 gang members. When I shared with the president, it's almost impossible for El Salvador to accept them back because they don't want their gang members back, because they wouldn't give us landing rights, they wouldn't give us travel documents. So it's a constant fight. President Trump called El Salvador and told them, you will take them back. I'm going to pull every dollar of international aid away from you. I'll take my money away. They came to the table in 48 hours. So look, you got to have a presence that's strong and tell these countries you're going to do the right thing. Just like Mexico, the Remain in Mexico program. Mexico didn't want to do that. But he said, if you don't do it, I'll tariff you in billions of dollars. Then they got military on the southern border and northern border. Mexico didn't do this voluntarily. They did it because we had a strong president hold their feet to the fire. It's illegal in Mexico to traffic women and children, but they're allowing it. It's illegal for an alien from another country to transit through Mexico without a transit visa, but they allowed it. President Trump says, no, this is over. You're going to do the right thing, or I'll tariff you in the billions of dollars. And guess what? They came to the table. So what it takes is a strong president who demands these people do the right thing, or there's going to be consequences.
Yeah, you've commented on the former President Trump. Do you have any ideas of what kind of immigration policies that he would be probably implementing, or what he might have mentioned that would stop the flow of traffic currently?
He's going to do the same he did the first time, except he's going to expand it. Remain in Mexico program be put back in place. The 30 safe country agreements back in place, and catch and release, continue building the wall. There's other things he can do, through executive action legislation. That if someone gets, people say they demand due process for asylum seekers. Okay, whatever. If you really claim asylum, you should get due process. But when at the end of that due process, if a judge ordered you removed, you must be removed. There has to be a consequence. And the left say, why are you removing that guy? But wait, you can't have it both ways. You can't say he has right to due process and ignore the results of due process. So I think it needs to be executive order or legislation that says, if you ignore the judge's order to deport, you will never in your lifetime be eligible for another immigration benefit. Many people will leave because, as you know, the first thing they do, they get some USC kids, so USC can petition for them someday. But if you take that opportunity away from them, say, look, you will never be able to qualify for amnesty. You'll never qualify for a visa. You'll never qualify for your children to petition for you. Take that thing away from them, and I think a lot of them will self-deport with the hopes they can come in another way, through a legal way. So I think that would be an imperative part of removing some of these millions that are already here. And lately, I've been talking about, President Trump's been talking about the biggest deportation operation in the history of the United States needs to happen. Of course, the left's going crazy. That's racist. That's terrifying what you're saying. Well, look, not argue. So look, on the heels of historic illegal immigration, where the courts say 9 out of 10 would get order removal. So when you got millions coming across, 9 out of 10 lose their case, get order removed. There has to be an historic deportation operation, because if you don't execute those orders, then what the hell are we doing? What is it? What's the alternative? Let them stay? Because if you can let them stay, you're never going to fix the border. Everybody's going to claim asylum, knowing they'll lose their case, but no one's going to execute those orders and make them leave. No, if the final order of the courts doesn't mean anything and they're not going to be executed, then what the hell are we doing? Shut down the immigration courts then. Don't even have them. If the orders don't mean anything, take the border patrol off the border, because there's no consequences. If you lose your case, no one's looking for you. You're not going to be removed. So it's just ridiculous that the left says you can't have a huge deportation operation. No, the law requires it, and that's what we're going to do.
No, I hear you. It's probably the most divisive topic, this whole deportation and asylum. It's something that everyone comes on here and argues, and it's usually divided by political parties, and it's complex.
I don't understand why it should not be a partisan issue anymore. Because what I tell people in every speech I get, I don't care what your opinion is on illegal immigration. Let's put that aside. Let's put illegal immigration aside. But when you cause a crisis this big that overwhelms the Border Patrol, so many of the agents are pulled off their patrol duties, what results? That's when the fentanyl came in and killed 148,000 Americans. That's when the no inspected terrorists can get away. That's when the sex trafficking of women and children happened. That's where the 2 million gotaways, which a lot of them will be gang members and criminals and just bad people. There's a reason they didn't pay less to turn themselves in and get a free airline ticket to the city of their choice. So regardless of what your opinion is on illegal immigration, when you cause a crisis as big, it causes all these other bad things to happen. So this illegal immigration crisis has created the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. Border Patrol's arrested over 370 off the terrorist watch list just on the southern border. 4 years under Trump, we had 13. So, with that number of no inspected terrorists or people off terrorist watch lists being arrested with 2 million gotaways, how many of the 2 million came from country-sponsored terror? Border Patrol's arrested people from 180 different countries. Some of these countries sponsored terror. If you don't think a single one of the 2 million gotaways didn't come from country-sponsored terror, then you're an idiot. So I tell people, regardless of what your opinion is illegal immigration, when you cause a crisis this big, it has turned into the biggest national security vulnerability I've seen in this nation. The FBI director said it 4 times during testimony. The secretary refuses to say it, but the Border Patrol agents, they see it every day. I truly believe we already have some here. And I don't know how many crossed under the Biden administration, but someday we're going to find out. It's going to be a bad day for America.
Yeah, that was like kind of my next question is the globalization of border crossings. Currently, we're seeing a massive influx from what we used to call exotics in the Border Patrol, but from countries that have known terrorists lists that are known to have these groups that don't look, positive against the American values and views. Countries like Turkey and China and, areas of Africa that are coming in currently at the record numbers. Just the Chinese nationals alone has been just ridiculous to see how many how the numbers have grown, and that for me raises a concern. You're seeing those numbers as well as yourself. Is that something that that when you talk about the potential threats, is that something what you're talking about?
Absolutely, and let's talk about the Chinese. Since October, there's been over 30,000 Chinese nationals into this country illegally. Vast majority military age males. Anybody knows anything about China has got to accept 2 things. Number one, China doesn't like us. That's why they're supplying the precursors for fentanyl, selling it to the criminal cartels in Mexico, knowing it will kill Americans. And there's no way 30,000 Chinese left the dictatorship of China without the Chinese government being involved. So Chinese government has a big hand in sending thousands of people here. China is a very strict country. It's a dictatorship. They have human rights abuses all the time over there. The government's not going to let 30,000 people pack up and leave unless the Chinese government is complicit. Between China government and Chinese organized crime, they're embedded with one another. Again, 30,000 Chinese nationals since October. What's the administration done about it? Has President Biden had one meeting with the president of China and say, what the hell are we doing? This has to stop. President Trump did it with El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. He said, you're going to stop the flow. I won't take money away. What has this administration done with the PRC on Chinese, 30,000 Chinese coming? Not a thing. Blinken was just over there a month ago talking about the economy and trying to fix relationship. Nothing about illegal immigration. Nothing about the fentanyl flow, right? They're selling precursors, great fentanyl every day to criminal cartels. Who's been held accountable for that? Has President Biden held China accountable? Has he held the Mexican president accountable? And I tell you, that's the difference in presidents. I truly believe, and I saw President Trump hold him accountable. So look, 300 parents every day. At least 300 parents every day are going to find out their children are dead from fentanyl. And most of these deaths aren't on purpose. These are drug addicts. These are someone that think they're taking a college student taking a pill to stay up all night to study for a test or some other medicine. Most of these people don't realize you're even taking fentanyl. So, this is not, I would call it fentanyl poison by China. They know exactly what's happening and they're not doing anything to change it. So again, 180 different countries, many sponsored terror, and the Trump administration had 13 people on terrorist watch lists in 4 years, and they got 380.
Yeah.
Something's happening, and if you don't see that, then you're a fool. I mean, I tell people all the time, this is not a. You don't need to be a border expert to see this. Just look at the numbers and make your own determination. I think we all got to agree there's a problem here.
Yeah, it's definitely concerning. Those of you guys who are listening, the processing for a Chinese national and someone from Turkey, Afghanistan, Africa, it's the same process as anyone coming from South America. If they roll their fingerprints and they do their bio data and they don't see anything that is connection, in some of these countries we're not connected with our systems, we identify no criminal background, and they're claiming asylum, they get released into our country the same as anyone else, and then they have to wait their dates to show up to the immigration judge. And that's a concern for a lot of us. That's a concern for me personally. Trying to explain the process is no different. Go ahead, sir.
I talked to several chief patrol agents this last few weeks, and the process, the problem right now is the Chinese interpreters, language interpreters, are so overwhelmed right now that once they get an interpreter on the phone, they process as quick as possible and do the next one. So there's no time to do an investigative interview, which Border Patrol agents would love to do if they had time to do it. So right now, you're right. You're just taking the biometrics, taking biographic information, name, and a date of birth, whatever, releasing them. They're not doing what Border Patrol is trained to do and do an in-depth interview. Where did you come from? Who did you pay? What route did you take? They just don't have time to do it anymore because of the shortage of Chinese interpreters. And again, when people say, well, they're vetted, people need to understand they're only vetted against the information available to us. So does anybody think China is sharing any national security information on anybody arrested from China? Of course you're not. All we got is we run through NCIC, we run through the different terrorist database. But people need to know that 90% of terrorists in the world aren't in any database. Unless they're a part of a T3 investigation, unless they're encountered on a battlefield and a retina scan was done by DOD, there's no information on these people. So most of the terrorists in the world, we don't know who they are. And this is a weakness in the vetting program. And people say, put terrorists aside, talk about criminals. Do you think El Salvador is sharing criminal information with us, or Turkey or Syria sharing any criminal information with us? So unless they've been arrested prior in the United States and have a criminal history here, they're going to come back clean. So the vetting process is very weak, and people need to understand that.
In February, the Senate failed to pass a bipartisan border bill, and you argue that bill would have made the situation worse. Why is that?
Because it didn't do anything to stop the problem. Doesn't address, and even its proclamation from last week, doesn't address child trafficking. Children are exempt from the numbers. So criminal cartels will keep trafficking children. Since Joe Biden's been president, over 450,000, think about that, almost 500,000. 450,000 children have been smuggled into our country in the hands of criminal cartels. God knows what's happened to these children in the hands of cartels. But then the government releases them, and they can't find nearly 100,000 of them. And based on my 3 decades of investigative experience, some of these children are forced labor. Some of these children are living with sexual predators. Some of these children are forced in the sex trade. How do I know that? Because I've investigated this many, many times as an agent. And matter of fact, HSI, the division of ICE, they got like a half a dozen investigations open right now. They found children in meatpacking plants cleaning up entrails on a midnight shift. They found sponsors, male sponsors, that can have 6 or 7 young female aliens living with them. I mean, this administration is not even doing proper vetting. So it did nothing about child trafficking. It did nothing about the abuse of parole. It wouldn't solve the problem. And back then, they're talking about 5,000 a day, right? Do the math. That's almost 2 million people a year. They're going to say, okay, it's 2 million people a year come in, they won't do something about it. 2 million is still a historic number. So it did nothing to fix the problem. And when I said it, they have, when Senator Schumer or President Biden says the toughest immigration bill ever, they're lying. The toughest immigration bill ever was H.R. 2 that was passed by the House. And Republicans saying, well, why don't Senate take up H.R. 2? They're not taking up H.R. 2 for one reason only. They'll fix the problem. And a lot of them are mad because why do we know it will work? Because a lot of it's Trump policies. We don't have to guess if it's going to work. We know it's going to work. We proved it. So why would we negotiate against known success? We wouldn't. That's why that bill is terrible.
Tell us about Homeland Strategic Consulting LLC, and what does your work look like there? If you don't mind, if you don't have to as well.
When I retired, I started my own company, and I advise. I do Homeland Security Consulting. I work with companies about Homeland Security issues, whether you're a company that has international branches, and we talk about the threats of Homeland Security, how it can affect them. Companies that are interested in Homeland Security, I advise them how they can get their foot in the door and get some government contracts to help us fight the various national security threats are coming our way. So still, it's all about, that's what I call it, Homeland Strategic. It's all about working with large corporations to help them protect their companies, protect their assets, protect their intellectual property from being smuggled by other countries. So it's really still, I'm still working Homeland Security. I'm just doing a civilian now, and it's been all right. And I'm still in the game. I may be a civilian, but I'm still in the game. And of course, I work for Fox News Network. I'm one of their. I'm not employed. I'm a contributor. So
like a contracted.
I do a lot of on Fox News, and a lot of people don't like that because I give it to them straight the way it is. But I've been doing that for 3 or 4 years, and I'll continue doing it. They're not going to shut me up. I think after serving 34 years doing this job, I know more than anybody on the Hill about the border. You know more than anybody on the Hill about the border. And they're not going to shut me up whether I'm testifying or whether I'm doing an interview on TV. They're not going to shut me up because I think I've earned the right to talk, just like you earned the right to talk. And they can't shut us up. We know the border. We've been there. And I said after I retired, when the Biden administration went out of control, you got all these people out there now, so-called border experts, that they're border experts because they took a college course or they work for some think tank. And I said from day one, to be a border expert, you need to have been there and done it. Because you and I know things that no think tank knows and no college course can teach. So I'm staying in the game, and I plan on being back in the real game if things happen the way I want them to happen. So again, I love what I do. I love my country, and I've been doing this since 1984, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon.
I appreciate your time, honestly, and this interview has been enlightening, and it is an honor to interview someone in your capacity and your expertise in this subject. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for listening to Borderland and Ironclad Original. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe anywhere that you get your podcasts, and on YouTube at This Is Ironclad. Thank you, Warner Brothers, for sponsoring this video. If I had a time machine, I would definitely want to go back in time to the Wild West. But after watching this movie, you realize real fast how dangerous it was.
No.
I love this movie because it had love and romance.
Lieutenant, there's no reason for you to stay here. And here you are.
But also death.
What you build, they will burn down.
The stories infused with the reality of the historical events that happened.
All I'm trying to do is get as many of us as I can, as far as I can.
Trying to take over the West and find what's home.
You and I are standing guard on one of the last great open spaces.
And at the same time, you have people that are conflicted about what is theirs and who owns what first.
I will take from you until you are wiped clean from this land.
My time as a Border Patrol agent with Borstar, out there in the environments, in the wilderness of the West, you realize fast how the environment can really take control and own you.
Be careful. Someone's going to take that gun and wrap you with it.
What? We talked enough.
Yeah, the West was a wild one for sure.
You want to say?
You guys go check it out and you'll love it.